Hello everyone, and welcome to the second part of this conversation, managing life on reduced income. Last time we looked at the reality of a reduced income, and due to circumstances that happen in life, it is not strange that at some point people will run on reduced income, if not lose income totally. And so we were trying to ask ourselves, so what do you do when you face a situation of reduced income? If you are in employment and your boss has broken the news that you will have a pay cut, or you're in business and you realize that your profits are going to reduce, so how do you handle yourself? And before you even begin to know how to handle money, how to adjust your spending, it was important that you master how to handle yourself, how to adjust yourself to save your mind and to save your emotions. And that is what we were doing in part one, in what we called the non-financial response to income reduction. So today we are here to look at the second part, which is the financial response. The question that everyone keeps asking, so how do I handle money? How do I financially respond to this situation? And I will go straight into it, and I just want to share with us a few tips that can be beneficial, a few adjustments that are practical, that can be useful to you when you face a situation of reduced income. And the first thing that you need to do when you are facing the reality of a reduced income is to establish your current financial position. Look at the grounds that you are standing on. And when you establish your current financial position, you're looking at largely three things. You're looking at your income. Ask yourself, so what is my current income level? If you're in a family setting and you've been pulling your incomes together, now you look at the new position after the reduction. If your reduction has happened 50%, some employers will reduce it 25%. Depending on how it has dropped, or if it is your profit, establish the new income level. Get to know what exactly it is. So tell yourself, remind yourself that my new income is going to be this. Then the second thing, under establishing your current financial position, is looking at your expenditure level. Remind yourself what you spend your money on. Now, this might be a bit tricky for some people. You know, many people do not know how to answer the question, where does your money go? But it's important that at this point you sit down and begin to try to figure out how you usually spend your money. So what are your expenditure items looking like? So do a listing of the things you think you have been spending your money on. And number three, look at your debt position. Who do you owe? If you've been repaying your debts well, how much have you been repaying per month? Now, when you get these figures, they begin to give you a picture. They begin to show you whether you will be able to maneuver through easily, or depending on how low your salary has reduced or your income has reduced, you are able to know whether you are not in a position to continue repaying your debts well or to meet your expenditure with the reduced amount. So that's the first thing that you need to do. Number two thing that you will do after you have established your current financial position is to draw a new budget. Now, sit down and begin to list the things that you intend to be spending your money on, the reduced amount. But now, as you do this new budget, I want to suggest that you split it into two. The expenditure items, divide them into two. The essential items, these ones that you cannot do without. And then the non-essential items, what you may want to consider as luxuries. So list them separately. The reason for listing them separately is that as you do the listing, depending on how your new income looks like, you begin to have a conversation with yourself. You begin to discover perhaps that your new income is not even able to handle your essentials, or it is able to handle your essentials and a bit of non-essentials. If you are to make adjustments, it is easier for you to know where to start from, unlike when you just do a blanket list of your expenditure items. As you do this new budget, it is also important for you because at some point your income might have reduced so tremendously that you might need to switch to what we call a bare bones budget. A bare bones budget is that budget that we might describe as the bare minimum. You see, when you realize that the income you have is not even sufficient to handle your essentials the way they have been, then sometimes unique situations call for unique responses. And when you are faced with situations such as this, we switch into survival mode, right? So that then we can be able to survive and bridge to the next life when income will resume, as has been the case before. So remember, last time we said you have to understand the nature of the pay cut. Is it permanent or is it temporary? So if it's temporary and your employer has said that it will resume after a year or after 5 months, then within these 5 months, you are pressing your survival buttons. So if you realize that your income is not capable of handling your essentials the way they have been, then you might need to switch to the bare bones budget. Bare bones is where you ask yourself, what food do I need to survive? Do I really need this? What are the other options to these essentials? So that then you fit yourself into the remaining income to just survive the tough period. Then, as you do this new budget, it is also advisable that you do not factor in income that is irregular. For instance, if what you do, whether you are employed or in business, there is some money that you usually receive that cannot be described as regular. Maybe some overtime or some allowances that are not stable. Do not include them as part of the income because they might throw you off balance. You might budget using the money, and then the money does not come in the cycle that follows, and that might leave you exposed. So do not include that money, so that when it comes, then it gives you a buffer. It is money that you can easily save. It is money that can stay and safeguard you in the event that things get thicker. Then number 3, you have now looked at your expenditure. You have now drawn a new budget. After you have the budget with you, you can begin to cut back on non-essentials, right? You can begin, these are usually your first lines of defense, of response. If you are to start reducing anything, you begin by looking at the non-essentials. So number 3, you can begin to cut on your non-essentials. So remember I said you list your expenditure items divided into 2, essentials and non-essentials. So as you look at your non-essentials, you can begin to reduce the percentage that you spend on some things or the frequency with which you spend money on some things. For example, there are people who have divided their money so well, and they have said that every end month we spend this much on clothing. We spend this percentage on treating the family, taking the family out. Now, COVID has come and it has come with its realities. So you might need to reduce the percentage that you spend on some of these non-essential items. For example, if you've said you must spend, and I've met people who are that serious, who have said every month they must spend 10% of their income on clothing. So they have to buy clothes every month. This could be that time when you might need to cut back on that percentage and say, maybe if you must buy every month, then it may not continue being 10% and you might need to reduce it perhaps to 5% or something else, right? So you can change the percentage or you can change the frequency. If you've been going out as a family every weekend and now you have reduced income, you might then sit down and decide that we are not throwing out this item completely, but we are reducing the frequency of going out from every weekend, maybe to twice a month or once in a month, depending on the situation as it is. Then, as you also look at your non-essentials, it is also important to begin asking yourself where you've been shopping for the non-essentials. Yeah, you might need to make a few adjustments from that particular perspective. So that is the third tip that you might need to put in place. And then number 4 is that you may need to save some money from your essential spending. There are these items that you have listed as essential, but the truth is, if you dig deeper into them, you might discover that some of the items there are not as essential as they should. We all know that food is essential. However, not every food item is essential. We also have luxurious food. And a time comes, depending on how low your income has reduced, that you might also begin to look at some of those items and decide whether you want to continue spending on items that are in the essential box but might not be as essential. Now, in this, as you try to also look at how you can cut back on your essential items, you can begin to look at your bills and begin to reduce on your bills on the items that can be reduced on. Check your spending on electricity, for example. You know, in the world of money, every coin counts. Do not look at some few coins and think that they are too little to make a difference. When you are facing a situation of reduced income, every coin that comes in as a plus counts. So look at your bills. Look at your look at the water bill, look at electricity, look at transport, and see the adjustments that you can make. You can also begin to look at alternatives, right? And even for the non-essentials, things like television. If you've been having pay TV, sometimes when you take time to evaluate what you spend, what you watch on your TV, there are people who have bought pay TV packages that have channels they never consume. Sometimes, at a time like this, you need to look back and see what percentage of what you've paid for do you consume. There are people who've subscribed to internet options that have speeds worth running offices with 100 employees, but they stay alone in their houses, or just a small family that could actually do better even with the lowest speed packages. So you need to look at alternatives. If your service provider has been the most expensive, is it possible that you can get the same services from competition at a lower rate? So as long as the quality and the services can be gotten from a cheaper option, this could be that time that you might need to switch to alternatives. Then you might also need to look at how you shop and where you shop. You know, when you have money, when you feel opulent, there's always the temptation to feel that you can do anything that you want to do. And there are people who drive, they live in Kasarani and they drive to go and shop at the junction. When you have money, nothing limits you. You can drive all that way. You never remember that you're spending fuel. You never remember that even if the price could be cheaper at the junction, maybe it's cheaper by 10 shillings. And you're spending fuel worth 1,000 to go and make a saving of 10 shillings. So we have to sit down and look at all these things keenly. What are you trying to save? I remember when I was in college, we used to have an Uchumi supermarket that was closer to campus. And I remember sometimes we used to avoid shopping there because rice was costing 80 shillings. And we would walk a long distance to go and shop from another supermarket downtown that was selling rice at 78 shillings or 79. So we are going to save 1 shilling, and we're spending a lot of time going to that supermarket to save 1 shilling. But this is what used to happen when we come back to our halls of residence. Once we get back, we are tired and we are hungry. So what did we do? We would pass by the tuck shop and buy some mandazi, go and boil water and take tea. Now we have been forced to spend 10 shillings buying mandazi. If we would have bought from the supermarket across the road, we would come back and we are not tired. So this is the time to be keen on some of the decisions that you make. So look at how you've been saving, rather how you've been shopping and where you've been shopping. Sometimes the situation now may not permit you to continue traveling long distances to shop where you've been shopping. You might also need to change the way you've been doing it. If you've been buying one item every other time, perhaps this could be the time you need to buy some items in bulk and gain from the advantages of doing bulk shopping if it comes loaded with discounts. So check around before you walk out to purchase. Look at what the market is offering. What options do you have from different markets? Is it possible that then there is an offer somewhere? This is the time to take advantage of those offers. Sometimes online shopping might come in to help. If you have shops that can help you so that you reduce on what you spend on the road going to shop, and you might also get offers as you do the same. So that is the fourth tip that will also help you. Number 5, it's also important as you process this that you do not shortchange savings and your pension. There is always the temptation that when things get thick, we begin to want to stop saving, and if we've been saving previously, we want to start liquidating our savings accounts. As much as it is practically possible, resist the temptation to break into your savings account at a time like this, unless you are convinced that whatever income has remained is not enough even to run a bare bones budget that I have described. That is the only time then you might need to remember that kitty that you've been building for emergencies. Otherwise, as long as you can still survive, avoid as much as it's possible to touch that account. Now, if your reduced income can permit, continue savings. Reduce the amount, but don't reduce the percentage that you've been saving. And it's automatic. If you've been saving 10% of your income, when it reduces, reduce with it, but the percentage remains 10%. So if it was 10% of 50,000, it was 5,000. When it's reducing to 30,000, it will be 3,000. So do not stop the thing. Remain with the principle of saving. Let your percentage remain as it has been, unless you convince yourself that things have gotten to a level that is out of hand. Those that have been saving for retirement, you started building your pension kitty for retirement. You have not retired. Many people keep asking, is it good enough for me to break into this account? Of course, the money is mine and I'm facing this situation. I would say this. If you had a goal when you started saving for retirement, your goal was a goal based on retirement. You haven't retired just because your employer has reduced your income. You haven't retired just because your profits in your business have reduced. Again, as much as it is practically possible, resist the temptation to touch your retirement kitty. Crazy ideas begin to come at a time like this. Crazy temptations begin to happen, but do not be tempted to touch that account. Hope we're making sense. Number 6, as you continue responding to that situation, it is important to continue monitoring your expenditure. When you had a lot of money, many people forget to track what they spend their money on. And that is why, as I said in the beginning, very many people cannot explain where their money goes. It's the hardest question for many people. And you see, in the world of money, the big question might not be how to make money. It is how to spend money, how to manage expenditure. So at a time like this, you want to monitor your expenditure so badly so that you can be able to tell whether your money is going where you wanted it to go. Because any slight mistake will affect a lot of things on your budget. And before you know it, you might find yourself wanting to borrow for consumption. And you begin to set yourself for great danger ahead. So continue monitoring how you spend your money. Be deliberate about it. It will be tedious if you've not been doing it in the past, but make it a habit. Do those baby steps and just monitor and see that your money has gone where you wanted it to go. And that will go a long way in ensuring that you are able to live within the means that you have remained with, because these are abnormal times and we must therefore deploy abnormal measures to respond to the situation. Then number 7, it's also important to give attention to your debt. If you had borrowed and you are repaying and your money has reduced, maybe you are not able to continue repaying and servicing your debts the way you've been doing before. This is not the time to forget about it, because lenders do not know what you're going through, so they'll continue expecting money from you. Now, at this time, you might need to put in place a few things to ensure that your relationship with your lenders continue to run the way they've been running. If you are not able to continue repaying your debts the way you've been doing, it could be of interest for you to reach out to your lenders, engage them, speak to them, and with them, explain to them what has happened. Because this thing is with all of us. And the psychology of lending, I've said many times, is that every lender wants to know that you have their best interests at heart. So you don't sit and wait for the lender to look for you because you stopped repaying. Reach out to them, explain what has happened, and be practical as you do it. Do not make promises that are out of this world. Don't tell your lender that you will pay next week Tuesday when you know that you will not get any money to pay. Because when then you default after the promises, then you turn yourself from being a simple borrower or debtor into becoming a liar. So your lender categorizes you into another bad group, and they engage a different gear, and that puts a lot of pressure on you. The stress levels begin to go high. If you recall what we said last time, that some people go into stress when they're faced with reduced income. You don't want to be part of that lot because it's an expensive lot. You might also begin to think about consolidating your debts. If you've borrowed from different places, different debts come with different terms and conditions. So you could be paying a lot of interest on your debts. You might now need to look for a cheaper source that can swallow all the other sources so that you remain with one lender, and that has the effect of releasing a few coins back to your disposable income, and the pressure from the points you've borrowed from reduces to one person, because every debt is a pressure point. So if you borrowed from multiple people, then you have multiple pressure points. So this is that time then you might need to consolidate your debts. I'm just sharing a few tips because the tips are so many and we cannot go through. Debt management is a whole conversation that can take us the entire day. So just sharing a few tips that can be beneficial. You can also check around your houses. Some of you have items that play duplicated roles. Some of you have items that you're not using and they are in working conditions. You've been buying refrigerators from the day you started buying the small one. You've upgraded, now you have a refrigerator that has double doors, but you still have the others, 3 or 4 of them. You've not gifted your relative, you've not gifted your friends. This could be the time then to put them on sale, get a few coins, and cool down some pressure from some lenders. So pay attention to your debts. Do not ignore your debts. Speak to your lenders. Do not run away from them. They were with you when things were low, so do not run away from them even now that things have changed. Number 8, do not lose track. Do not lose focus on your long-term goals. You know, before COVID happened, before your income was reduced, you had plans. People had investment plans. People had serious goals in life. And some of those goals were to happen after a long time. People had goals to develop their residential homes. People had goals to do different things. And this time you might be tempted to begin thinking that those goals cannot be accomplished. I just want to encourage you that you should never lose focus of the goals that you had that were of long-term nature. If those goals were being implemented step by step, slowly by slowly, then continue doing them as much as your new income can permit, only that they will happen in a longer span of time, because maybe the amount that was going into it has now reduced. But don't lose focus. And even if your new income can no longer accommodate them, always keep the dreams alive, so that when you have crossed over to the next phase, when your income comes back to normal, then you can carry on with them. Do not fold your dreams just because your income has reduced. Number 9, Avoid the temptation to fall for high-risk investments. This is not that time then to risk your capital. When things are thick, when your income comes down, you go into a special season. It is a season where we are pressing the conservative button. So this is not the time for you to be lured into things that are promising high returns but are very risky. Because at a time like this, if you lose a chunk of your money, then your pressure levels might go high. Because it's a time when everyone is trying to cling on the little that they have so that they spend it in a manner that is well calculated. And so if you just lose your money like that because of a promise to have your money doubled or tripled, then you begin to set yourself for a lot of trouble in the days to come. So this is a time when if your income still permits for investment, then it's a time to be very cautious as you choose the avenues through which you will invest your money. This is not the time to be lured heavily on the promise of very rosy returns. This is the time to invest in a manner that safeguards your capital until a time when normalcy has come back. Because many people will be out there with schemes that look like very promising investment ventures, but the truth is that they're also trying to survive, and they might be preying on you so that you also help them to survive. And so if you get lured by the promises that they make, that your money will double in a few weeks' time, then you might be so shocked. And lastly, number 10 for today, begin to think income. Your income might have reduced today, but it's also a trigger for you to remember that relying on one source of income might not be the best thing that you have ever done. Multiple sources of income always go a long way to cushion you when one or two or a number of your income streams get affected by certain circumstances. A time like this, if you are relying on employment income, for instance, and your income has reduced, if you had another source of income, you would still be cushioned. Your essential expenditure items would still happen without a lot of pressure. So this is the time to begin thinking of how else can I make an extra coin? If you're working from home, is there something else you can do? What skill do you have that can be monetized? Do you know how to bake cakes? You can begin baking cakes for us to buy. Do you know how to weave mats? You can begin weaving them and using the power of social media to advertise for people to buy and make an extra coin. As I mentioned, in the world of money, every coin counts. So are you able to begin adding into your income basket an extra coin? What do you have that can be monetized, that the world can benefit from? Is it a skill that can be beneficial? Is it a talent that can be commercialized? Is it something that you can share with people and people can give you something for it? So begin to entertain those thoughts, the thoughts of what else can I do to make a coin? And you will be so glad when you begin to make an extra coin as you continue working and earning your reduced income. If you're running a business and your profit levels have reduced, this I've liked telling business people that COVID has come to test our flexibility. So how flexible are you? Are you still rigid and folding your arms and saying my business has been affected this way, and because it cannot continue happening the way it's been happening, so I have to sit and wait until COVID goes? What if COVID stays longer? What if your industry gets affected much longer? Is it possible that you can do something to reinnovate, to reinvent a few things within your business so that then your business remains afloat? Is it possible that then you can launch new products that can also help keep your business afloat? What else can your business do to begin to bring in more revenue than has been the case? So think income. People of God, our God still loves you. God still wants us to excel. He's still the same God on the throne, the same one who promised us prosperity. He has not forgotten his promises to us. He still wants us to succeed. It is still everyone's right to live and live abundantly, the way John 10:10 reminds us. That is why Jesus came, so that we may have life and have it in full.